Welcome to Chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So we have Title Tuesday in progress, and we got none other than Hikaru Nakamura. Like I said, taking no prisoners. So far, so good. This is round number 7. So this is Nakamura versus Mahdi Orimi of Iran. All of my people that are coming from the Philippines, as always, I will say Maraming Salamat. Anybody who is coming from Iran, I will say Haili Mamnoon. You guys probably noticed that I did change my chess legend down there, Hans Kamak. So he's like a great author. He was a journalist. He was a chess writer. And he did write this book right here, Pawn Power in Chess. So one of the things when you play chess, understanding how pawns work and kind of the structures that you'll get into, we'll kind of get into it in this game a little bit, but, that's something very important to understand. So, you guys have to forgive me. I'm a little bit sick, so I might sound a little strange to you, a little stuffy, but I'm going to try to make it through. Yeah, man, if you guys are ready to go, man, let's take a look and see what we got for this game. All right, man, so we got the move D4. We got G6, C4, Bishop G7. So we start off with a modern defense. We do see E4, we got D6, and then we see Knight to C3. And this is the Averbakh variation. Now, what we see in the game is Knight to D7, and you're kind of keeping your options open if you're black, especially if you're Naka. We're going to get into kind of like his playing style in a second. If we say Knight to F6 here, it's just going to be a King's Indian defense, and you can kind of go in whatever fashion you want to go into. But we don't see that. Like I said, Knight D7. We do see Bishop to E2. We got the move C5. We got Knight F3, and then B6. And like I said, this is true Naka style. He doesn't always play this way, but, the double feed kettle is kind of like his bread and butter. It's very solid. It's not like it's lost. It's just kind of one of the little setups that you want to play. He knows it fairly well. We got castles by white, and then bishop goes to B7. And something I want you guys to notice about the position is we kind of have a hybrid of, like, many different openings. We kind of have, like, some Benoni stuff. We got some Owen. We got some modern. We got some Sicilian, and then some King's Indian. So, if you notice, we kind of have the structure where you would have an Owen. A lot of the times you see C5 and Owens. Also, you do have typical kind of like Benoni hitting against this pawn. That is similar to Sicilians. We got King's Indian possibilities with Knight to F6. Like I said, we got modern with this over here. So it's kind of like a hybrid between many different types of openings. So, if you're familiar with any of those openings, you should kind of have some ideas as far as playing the structure is concerned. White is kind of waiting on pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, stuff like that. We do see a rook going to E1. We got pawn taking D4, and like I said, this is kind of what white is wanting. Pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, so this has improved our position just a little bit. We have this Maraxi bind type situation going on, something else in there also. We have this knight behind the pawn, and we just have a really nice central knight. Everything is good. We got knight G to F6. We got F3. You do have to be careful sometimes with this diagonal becoming open. But since this bishop is way over here, it's not really as much of a threat than, if the bishop was going to maybe redirect over here, stuff like that. Sometimes, this can be an issue because Ben Feingold says never play F3, right? We do see castles by black. We got bishop going to E3, just making sure the diagonal is extra safe. Protecting the knight also, we got A6. We do see queen to D2. We got E6. We got bishop back to F1, queen goes to C7. We got rook A to C1. On a good day, these pieces will move, and then this queen will just drop because, Hikaru probably doesn't like queens at all, right? Rook A goes to C8. We got rook E going over to D1. Rook F to D8. We got the move B3. And then we do see the move queen to B8. And white is in a very dominant position here. It's not like they're absolutely winning, but they definitely have some, ideas. They have the ability to try to move forward and expand their position. You just really kind of have to find the right idea. One of the things you should notice about black is they are very solid, but they do have somewhat of a passive pawn structure going on. So Hans Kamak will be like, hey, bro, what's going on with these pawns, bro? But, you see that, Hikaru's not being very ambitious with his pawns at the moment. He kind of just pretty much used the move to kind of move on one square. So he's playing very cautiously, just, trying to be as solid as possible. So this pawn and this pawn should kind of stick out to you if you are white looking at the position. You know, with it being kind of somewhat similar to a Sicilian, I mean, this is definitely a focal point here. So that would be, you know, kind of behind some of the moves that you would want to make. So we see Orimi go here. You know, the idea is pretty clear. You know, we're trying to hit this somewhat, you know, weak pawn over here. Black doesn't really have the ability to go b5 because you'll just gobble that up, you know, thanks for the pawn. And then you are hitting this point right here. So, you know, black is a little bit restricted with, you know, kind of the way they can defend this position. Other ideas that you have in the position right now is a bishop to g5, just kind of pinning this knight down. You do also have a knight down to e2. Knight down to e2 right here. Just basically, you know, just like I said, placing an attack on black, saying, hey, bro, I'm looking at your weaknesses, so what are you going to do about them? So it's always nice when you have a situation where you can put your opponent on the defensive. That is definitely what you want. But like I said, we do see queen to f2. We got the move h6, and this is the novelty of the game. And like I said, check out all these pawns. He's being very conservative with his pawn moves right now, but he will be making a statement coming up in a second with one of his pawn moves. We do see knight to a4. I mean, going all in with this idea, like I said, as soon as we move this knight somewhere out of the way, you know, we are going to be heavily hitting this pawn. And there's really not a whole lot black can kind of do about it. But is that the right thing to be focused on? Because we are kind of focused on the rim at the moment. And so Nakamura decides that he's like, hey, man, it's prime time for me to try to get rid of one of my weaknesses in the center. So he does the move d5, and this is absolutely very good timing. Now, in this position, there is a right way and a wrong way to go about playing this if you are white. And what we actually see Orimi do is play it somewhat in the wrong way, and he has to kind of bail out. So what we see is pawn takes d5, the c pawn. We got pawn taking d5. We got rook taking c8, rook taking c8, and then we do see the bailout move e5. So you see that during the process of him kind of taking with the c pawn, he's realizing like, hey, man, you know, my position is not the absolute best. You know, I kind of have to do something to kind of get out of this situation. But what you have noticed is, you know, both bishops are starting to become a little bit more open. So the position is favoring Naka just a little bit more here. So going back into the position that we had after the move d5, the problem is this is a blitz game. So, I mean, you don't have a lot of time to calculate deeply, but this is absolutely probably something that Orimi would have seen in a longer time control game. But it is very, very sharp tactically. In this position, after we see d5, you would best be going pawn takes d5 here. And then after this pawn takes, you would be looking at the temporary sacrifice knight takes b6. Might kind of seem strange. You're like, wait a minute, why am I doing? Am I just giving away my knight? But you do have a very dynamic pawn that's going to cause some problems for black. Knight would be taking here on b6, and then you do see the move c5. And you really don't have anywhere good to place your knight. You could go back to where you came from, but that's just going to be looking at this here, and you are going to be getting your material back. The really only other thing that you could have done, of course, the computer says knight c4. Just put it right here next to the pawn. But I think most humans are going to do this right here. You go back here, you're going to still be looking at this because the bishop is trapped on b7. But like I said, this is something very, very tough to find in a blitz game. You don't have a whole lot of time to be calculating these lines and stuff like that. So that's what Nakamura is taking advantage of. So we do get in this position here. We got queen taking d5, but, you know, white still has the ability to try to go after this pawn on b6. We do see knight to e2, and then we do see rook going down to c2. And it might kind of look like white is going to be getting everything that they want because, you know, they had this plan with going knight takes b6. Knight takes, we got knight taking, bishop taking, but Naka is just in time to be able to capture a pawn of their own. So now Nakamura is just up an entire pawn. So before he was kind of getting pressed, he was in a little bit more of a passive position. Now he is in a very, very nice position with the position being somewhat open. And he has these bishops going on. Everything is everything for him. We got rook going over to c1, trying to penetrate into black's position. We got queen to e8, which you still have the ability to go rook to c7. But we do see queen going to e3. And I feel like, you know, he's thinking that his king doesn't really have a whole lot of like space to breathe. And maybe it'll be a little bit better to kind of get the queens off the board, get some of the pressure off. So we do see queen going here, the queen taking, bishop taking here, and then we do see knight to e8, which is a really nice move. Because one of the things you need to notice if you're black is that this rook actually kind of can penetrate into your position if you let it. So going back knight to e8, that's cutting off a lot of the penetration squares that black can go to. You can kind of go here, but I mean, after this, you're going to be having to move your rook back. You haven't made any progress. So that is something that Naka is very aware of. That's one of the things about when you're playing chess is, you know, when you're going on the attack, when you know you have a better position, trying to make sure that you're still defending when you need to. So being able to switch between offense and defense is, you know, the mark of a very strong player. So we got knight up to d4. We got the move h5. We got the move b4. We got the rook over to b2, trying to make sure that pawn doesn't really cause too much havoc. We got the pawn going to b5. Pawn takes b5. Knight takes b5. We got bishop going to a6. And then we actually see a game-losing blunder by Orimi, and that move is knight to c7. And I think a lot of you guys are probably sitting there looking like, wait a minute, why is this the game-losing blunder for? I mean, it just looks kind of normal, like knight takes, and then rook takes, and then everything's everything. No, it's not. It's not. We do start off with knight takes c7. And if you are Orimi in this position, you have really only one move that makes any semblance of sense, even though you are completely lost. This is like +5 for Naka, right? So that's not where you want to be. If you're playing Nakamura, that you're going to be +5 to him, you don't want to be that. But if you want to pause the video and try to guess what move you should try to play here, if you're Orimi, go ahead and do so. Okay. All right, like I said, guys, there is really only one move that you can make in this position. There is a very human move that a lot of people would make, and it's not like it's absolutely terrible. You know, there's not a lot that you could really do in this position if you are Orimi. I think the most human move that people would play would be rook takes c7, because you're like, hey, I'm just getting my material back. Like, what's the big deal? And that's pretty much what Orimi was like. I mean, you could tell that when he was here, he was like, man, this is bad somehow. But, you know, and so he's probably figuring out that it's pretty terrible. But the move that I'm actually looking for in the position is bishop takes a6. And then you notice that you guys are down a piece. You maybe have rook to c8 with check type stuff. The problem is it doesn't really matter what you do if you're white. You're going to go down a piece. This is probably one of the best ways to kind of fight that, but you're still completely losing the game. So when we get in this position here, you know, we actually do see rook takes c7 with check. And it might kind of seem like white can defend this because you probably are noticing that rook to b1 is double attacking this bishop right here, and this bishop is pinned. You're losing an entire piece. You might kind of think, hey, man, I can go rook to c1, right? I mean, that's what Orimi does, you know, that's what he thought probably too. But then after rook takes c1, it is in this position that Orimi resigns the game. And you're probably sitting there wondering, why do you resign? Because, like, the bishop's going to take, and I mean, there's no more, like, pins here, stuff like that, right? Well, this is something you have to be considering. Bishop would take on c1, and you interpose the move bishop to d4 with check first, forcing the king to move over to h1. After you see that, you would be going down an entire piece. So you now have two bishops versus one, and you have one less pawn than Hikaru Nakamura does, and that's not what you want. So it does seem like, after everything is said and done, that Ben Feingold was right that you never play f3. So anyways, man, I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. Mermi salamat, the king Makai Bigan. Khali Mamnoon, or merci to you. And I'm going to see you guys next time.